pop up. Hello.
Hello. Indeed, it can be disconcerting if you're not used to it. I'm on Zoom all the time, so
Are you? Well, I like my whole life right now revolves around talking to people, which I guess is
okay.
common enough, but it's mostly in person or
Yeah,
like, text and phone call and stuff like that. So like I don't see my own face very often, but I'm very emotive and so like
yeah.
I'm always so it's kind of a But it's funny because I was looking at my face and I was like, man, I look like a madman. And then and then I remembered I was like, oh yeah, I've got three children. Yeah. It's it's just funny like how somebody who's like certifiably mentally ill has all
Hmm.
the same tendencies as a dude with a lot of children. You know what I mean? Anyways,
Interesting. In what
it's
way?
a common reflection. Well, a friend of mine calls it dad Tourette's. If you're ever on
Okay,
the phone with a dad and he's just like, "Yeah, so, the third quarter went well. Hey, stop doing that."
got it.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so that's one example. And just there's probably other examples. I fell asleep putting my children to bed, so I'm still waking up.
Okay.
It was 50-50 whether to go with caffeine or alcohol. So
Yeah.
I went with caffeine, so I'm more neurotic than relaxed. But
Well, maybe you'll be up all night now.
oh no, dude, it barely has any effect on me anymore. I'm just way too much coffee in my life. This is
Yeah,
tea.
I actually stopped drinking coffee about a year ago. For that reason,
God
it was too much. Yeah.
God bless you. I would love to. I have stopped drinking it before as
Hmm.
like the first time I did it was a Lenten penance. I didn't drink much
Okay.
coffee until I was like 22, but I lived in
Yeah.
Seattle and
Okay.
so I got into it there. But I've got some friends who are big advocates of like traditional medieval European diets, and they point out that coffee is an exotic luxury, and traditionally people would wake up with beer or wine.
Okay. Which is interesting because those are central nervous system depressants.
Well, I mean, I'm brewing my own now, and I will tell you, yes, that's true, but I will tell you that like there's a huge difference between the beer or any kind of I call it beer, but like this is a sugar mash and that's fruit
Mhm.
punch concentrate, just with yeast in it. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a huge difference between that, bringing it in my house, right there where I'm looking at it,
Okay.
and I was trying to think if I could show it to you, but I don't know if these papers have personal information on them.
Yeah.
I don't think they do. Here, look. Let's see if this will break the computer. Um, and the industrialized stuff, like the brand name stuff,
Yeah.
see it? That's the
Yep.
sugar
There you
mash.
go. I see that fermentation lock.
Yeah. I did kombucha for like a year or so.
Hmm.
Anyways, but point is, it's way healthier than like I think the sugar and the stuff, the additives that they put in alcohol, the chemical stuff. Like if you ever have non-alcoholic beer or something like that, that chemical
Hmm.
flavor, I think
Okay.
that's actually what's bad for you. I mean, you don't sit and drink so much that you get drunk and stuff like that. That's bad, but I think a lot of the ill effects are really the sugar. That's what I think.
Well, I stopped drinking alcohol this year because of the copious amounts of research showing that alcohol has a huge cancer risk. It increases cancer risk, especially of like internal gastrointestinal cancers by quite a bit, and that they are saying with current research that that outweighs the health benefits. So I used to drink for cardiac benefits, but supposedly
Right.
the cancer risk, I hear the cancer risk outweighs the cardiac benefits. So I'm erring in that direction these days.
Yeah, well, don't you? I mean, I agree with you. Do you think? Do you think that's because of the, like I was saying, like the industrialized additives and stuff like that?
That's not, I mean, that's not what the research is saying. The research is focusing on the alcohol. There's not a lot of industrial, certainly not a lot of industrial additives in what I drink or drank, which is, you know, wine and whiskey, which typically are have a very high degree of purity because the winemakers demand it and the consumers demand it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll continue my research and you continue your research.
There you go. We'll see which one of us dies first and from what.
I'm a
Um,
very I'm a very spiritual man. I mean, I
mhm.
like a lot of the decisions I make in my life. And that's not to say I'm not very intellectual, but like I got into homesteading and a lot of my friends they were all getting goats.
Okay.
That was the trend. And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know, man, I'm gonna get sheep. It seems like Jesus Christ likes sheep better.
There you go.
That was my rationale. And I'll tell you what, I really did benefit from that incredibly,
Hmm.
that simple decision.
Okay.
Like because I interacted with my sheep very closely and
Mhm.
it was interesting. So, but
Cool.
anyways, if my computer's been having heating trouble and I tried to take it apart to clean out the fan, but I
Okay.
couldn't do it, so I emailed the guy who built it for me.
Yeah.
So if it dies, I'm just gonna hop back in on my cell phone.
Okay.
That's that's been the thing.
That sounds good.
How are you?
The last interview I did over Zoom,
Hmm?
I lost my computer during it, and I had to do that. I had to finish the interview on my phone. It was
Oh
thankfully
wow.
my work computer. I just took it in, handed it to them. They had to completely re-image it.
Oh wow.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. What
It was pretty crazy.
do you think like Zoom broke it?
I don't know. Zoom hard hung, and then there was something on the machine that was eating so much um, probably memory that
Hmm.
it yeah, and let me think. If it was Zoom, it would have been recording to the cloud. This one is recording to the computer. So yeah, I have no idea. Not even really a reasonable hypothesis.
A Catholic guy I know, I don't think he thinks very highly of me,
Mhm.
but he's a good man. I like him. But he made a Catholic video. He was a software guy or a tech guy, and so he made an alternative to Zoom, Core 1312. And when I
Huh,
use it, my computer does not overheat. And
nice.
so these video meeting things, I think they're just like overly fancy. Like I think they make them more complicated than they need to be. Granted, his one sometimes has some like iffy like in and out and stuff like that. So there's
Mhm.
definitely an advantage there. But I don't know. Like I wonder sometimes if it's a conspiracy to make me have to spend $1,000 on a new computer, because these computers don't last. Somebody said you're supposed to replace them every year. I
Yeah.
said, well, that sounds like the military industrial complex to me.
Mm. Yeah, there's a certain amount to be said for progress and needing new equipment for that, for sure.
Well, I mean, it's what do they call that? Like design failure or something
Planned,
like that, where they make
planned,
it so that it
planned
breaks.
obsolescence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about milking money. That's what I think. So, what's on your mind?
Could be. I mean, is that what you want to talk about?
I no, I was just greeting you and making small talk. This is how I do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, no, no. That. No, sorry. Let
It's
me put
not
a context
uncommon
on
for
this.
this.
I'm assuming
Go
that
ahead.
you wanted to talk to have a street epistemology conversation. And so I'm going to
Right.
be probing for a topic that I can examine with you. And
Sure.
so that is an assertion that you've made that it sounds like you believe. So is I mean, I was legitimately asking, is that something you'd like to discuss as a topic, or did you have a particular? Because it was completely opaque to me. I dropped in and I was tagged in the middle of a conversation and said, "Oh, Nathaniel, you may want to talk to Nick." And so I have absolutely zero context here. And
Okay.
so I'm kind of walking in the door with the assumption that you wanted to do a street epistemology interview, and I don't know what your motivations are, but I would love to hear from you what your motivations are and adjust my
Yeah.
expectations.
Well, I really like Pierce Watkins, and seriously, like all the like I have interviews with like good friends of mine,
Yeah.
and the computer is like I'm so naturally disposed against it that
Mm.
I'll literally schedule it for 9 p.m. We'll show
Yeah.
up at 9 p.m. and not start the meeting for 20 minutes because I'm just small talking, trying to relax with the fact that I'm on a computer right now. Because I just hate it.
Yeah,
I
that's it.
love people.
It's
I
difficult.
love
It's difficult
people.
if you're not in person. I work for a company, a Fortune 500 company where, we're an international company. I work with people in London and in India and in Australia and all kinds of places. So we have to live on online. But I discovered
Right.
early on that interacting with someone in person, it's like the bandwidth, the information bandwidth is so much higher when you're in person with someone.
Right.
Yeah, and that actually there's like a window where when you've met someone in person and had meals with them and spent time with them and talked after that, video conversations are much more effective for a period of time.
Yeah.
There's like and seems to be an aura effect there. So it can be difficult, when you just meet someone over Zoom. I mean, it is there's there's a there's an attenuation of the communication, right? So yeah,
Right.
I don't blame you, and I'm happy to keep on chatting. One of the things that's really important in doing street epistemology or any sort of conversational uh any kind of conversation is rapport is king, right? It's like you have to
Right.
have that. We have to have that some kind of trust, right? In
Right.
order to be vulnerable.
Yeah, you got to feel out a man, see if he's got like honor and integrity and how it structures, you know.
Mm.
Yeah. Um I had some thoughts about that, but they're probably worthless. The okay, so my motivations would help you. So that's what you said that you care about. I was going to say I
I'm
really
just
like
curious because I don't want to go off on a tangent and for you to say, wow, that was a waste of my time.
well, it's probably I mean, I'm the one who wastes time, to be honest with you, but I'm very much I'm on this journey with God, and I kind of like I'm continually surprised by what He wants to do.
Mm,
Um, Pierce Watkins is a good example of that because like he um, he has got some really uh, like he's just on the side of things where I would not have expected to get along with him. You know what I mean?
okay.
But and that's not to say like I'm trained in public speaking, I'm trained in
Mm,
people skills. I can get along with anybody. But like if I'm really just like letting my opinion out there and just being myself sincere, it's
mm,
he's not somebody you would expect to get along with.
mhm,
That you expect us both to get along with. Either either you're from, the we could just use the very inaccurate idea of a spectrum, but you're from like the
mm,
far right and you just think, oh, this guy's got some major moral issues, talking about Pierce Watkins, or you're from the
mhm,
far left and you think I have like major like irrationality and stuff like that. I was
mhm.
on an atheist server, and um, this is why I like Pierce Watkins.
Yeah.
Is he had a thing there that said sometimes theists are as rational as atheists, and everyone on that server there was like 30, or it was like a lot of negative emojis on there,
Yeah,
like, oh, this
sure.
is terrible. And so, so I was, I kind of like took a double and a triple take, like, oh, they really don't think that theists are rational at all.
Hmm.
That's incredible. You know what I mean? Um, because it's almost like a cartoonish idea of what an atheist is, that they would actually think that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
A cartoonist
Um,
idea of atheists or a cartoonist idea of theists?
of atheists,
Okay.
yeah, and I guess, yeah, I guess it both. But I was thinking about the atheist, like the people that I hang out with
Hmm.
would talk about atheists as if they're like that, and then I'd be like, no, there's some good atheists, but
Yeah.
then I see that, and it's like, well, this is the stereotype that I'm dealing with, that I was told you're acting like. You know what I mean? But then obviously there's the counterexample, because it's literally directed at their own people. And that's just a very particular group. Atheists are not like that. I don't mean to say they're. I actually meant the focus to be different. But basically, my motivations are that I think I recently suffered a lot with my own family at the hands of capitalism, let's say,
Hmm.
of the housing industry, to the
Okay.
point where it killed my son, and I'm pretty upset about it, and I've reflected on it a long time, and so it made me realize that America is very divided with all these different political,
Hmm.
religious, philosophical opinions, and I don't think that any of those groups at all. I don't think any of them are enemy. You know what I mean? Because
Sure.
I've been an atheist, I've been an agnostic, I've been a Protestant, I've been a Calvinist, I've been like an evangelical vague Protestant, I've been a Calvinist, I don't even know if I'd say that's just a Christian is what they call it. Because I never protested the Catholic Church. Protestants are very like ethnocentric or ecclesiocentric word. I don't like it that much. It takes a while for a man to decide to be Protestant. Um, that's not here nor there. But I've been all those things, and now I'm Catholic, and politically, and all those kinds of opinions, economic opinions, social opinions, moral opinions. I've gone through this huge change that's very complex over the course of my life, and so I can actually understand the good thought of everybody, I think, pretty decently well. And I don't think anybody is the enemy. I really think that the problem is one thing, and that's usury. And so my motivations are, because capitalism, the difference between capitalism and free market, which is what conservatives love, is usury. It's usury. That's the only difference. Um, every other difference comes from usury. And so the sin of usury that nobody even talks about. Um, even though the whole world, the largest empire, everything's run off of usury for like 400 years. The culture, everything. Um, even the philosophies, even the social philosophies, even the religion is based off of usury. And even Catholics aren't Catholic. They have these weird opinions that are not Catholic. Um, and so my motivation is that, having discovered that with God, because I'm a writer, because I'm a publisher, because I have been an apologist, and I am now again an apologist. That's pretty minor on the list of things, because I don't think apologists are worth very much, in my opinion. I don't think it's a very good career. Um, I just saw I'm unfortunately an apologist, and a bad one. Um, I think that so I want to increase my media exposure so I could be a good publisher and all these things, and people might buy books and whatnot. And I think, and to do that on a moral and virtuous level, basically I need to talk about and teach, do the spiritual act of mercy of teaching the ignorant about the main thing that will make their lives better,
Mhm.
which for the widest group of people, which is usury. I think it's the problem
Mhm.
for everybody. I think anybody
Okay.
can agree on. I think everyone agrees on it, and that comes from my deep love of Jesus Christ, the poor,
Hmm.
and goodness, and my neighbor. You know what I mean? Which in America is literally everybody. It's
Yeah.
atheists, and Indians, and Native Americans. It's literally women. It's everybody. Everybody.
So
So, does that answer your
you,
question?
uh, yeah, I think so. So really, you're just looking um, to get your word out, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, amongst your crowd, I'm still
Yeah.
with Pierce because I don't know much about you, but like looking at it from what
Sure.
I know about Pierce Watkins, which is unfortunately little
Hmm.
because he doesn't give his opinion much. A wise man is more silent, and I give my opinion too much, so I don't know as much about him as I should. But it seems like the apologetics is what people are interested in. And I think atheists deserve an answer to like God and the truths of morality and theology. And I think honestly, they don't have access to them from what I've seen, having watched a lot of apologetics. I don't think that atheists have a reliable access to people who just practice the true traditional religion, the
Yeah.
ancient religion,
I mean,
the only religion.
are you interested in my point of view on apologetics?
Sure. Do you mean
So
like
what
the
I normally
truths of
tell people,
apologetics or the
no, no, I mean,
approach
if
of it?
if people, well, so first of all, actually, maybe before we get into that, do you know what street epistemology is?
No, I couldn't define it.
Okay.
I can tell you
Uh,
what it appears to be.
sure, go for it.
It seems like it's using very simple non-confrontation skills from a rationalist materialist perspective um, in order to understand uh, groups of people of different opinions, which is good. Atheists definitely need that because a lot of them are very aggressive.
I, th- I
A lot of everybody's aggressive.
Yeah. So I think you may have gotten that impression from talking with Pierce, because that sounds like a really good description of what Pierce does.
Okay,
Pierce uses a lot of nonviolent communication, for example, which is a different structure from street epistemology, and he
sure.
does he does some street epistemology. Um, Street epistemology is exactly what it says. It's epistemology for lay people. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. How do we know what we
Right.
know? Right? What are the when you look at someone's epistemology, you're looking at how do they arrive at conclusions. And in street
Do you mean
epistemology, sorry, go ahead.
when you say how they arrive?
Yeah.
In the conversations I've had with atheists where they've really attacked, or just piercingly dive deep with a more
Mm.
like good faith mode,
Yeah.
and I've had both. Uh, there seems to be a distinction. So there's the way my conclusions are grounded with
Hmm.
logic and how that logic comes together. And then there's the way I've reached my conclusions over time, which is not different, which is not the same. So you
Right.
know, like for instance, I would talk about why the Bible is true now. And it's not my favorite thing to talk about. Like I said, I'm not good at apologetics, but I would talk about why it's true in a different way from how I came to believe it's true. I actually prefer
Yeah.
that one, but it's totally different. totally different.
Yeah, and you're getting exactly to my point. So I've had street epistemology conversations with apologists, and it's kind of a useless conversation. I'll assert this. You can tell me whether you agree. Nobody became convinced in any spiritual proposition because of apologetics. People are convinced for different reasons. Apologetics are necessarily a
Yeah,
post hoc rationalization or a post hoc explanation for something. It's not why
yeah.
people believe. I'm interested in why people believe. And did they come
Okay,
to believe for good reasons? I
nice.
find
Well, that's
apologetics
better.
completely boring. And I disagree that atheists don't have access to apologetics. I think we're steeped in it. And in general, I think people who are atheist activists or who operate in that sphere, like we hear all the apologetics arguments constantly all the time, and it's frankly kind of boring because, like I said, it's not what convinces anyone, and so it's very
Yeah.
confusing to me as to why people use apologetics as a way to try to convince people of a religious proposition. And maybe
Well, the
maybe you have
best.
a position on that. Like why do you
Yeah.
use apologetics to try to convince people? Because if nobody is actually convinced by apologetics, I think the only people who are listening to apologetics are apologists.
Yeah.
Does
No,
that
I
does that
do.
make
I
sense? Sorry,
agree.
I don't want to be
Oh
like
no, dude, I
I don't
agree
want to
with that 100%.
be offensive at all, but that's kind of like how it looks to me.
No, that's not. That is 100% true.
Yeah.
And I think so there's a bunch of things I could say here that might be interesting, and they will all lead to tangents. So, um, I could talk to you about how I got into apologetics and what it means in the American milieu of theological details. Or I could talk to you about creationism, which I think is a big thing to clarify my point about not having access to apologetics. Or I could talk to you about apologetics as entertainment, because that's really what it is.
Hmm.
So, which
Yeah,
one do you want?
I don't want any of those. You you
Okay.
t you told me your primary belief, which is that usury. I mean, basically, you're saying the love of money is the root of all evil. Like it's you're translating that, right? But
Right.
I mean, that's what your claim is that
Right.
most of the problems, or maybe all of the problems. I mean, you've made a very broad statement saying all of human problems are caused by usury. I'd love to
Yeah.
drill into that. And are you okay with talking
Today.
about that? And do you mind if I do a street epistemology examination of that? And
No, I'd love that.
maybe I should describe what SE is because it doesn't sound like you've had and I
I'd
started
let.
out.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you one question though, just
Yeah.
just for my own sake, because when I say that, um, and we will, God willing, not go down this road, just mention it, that
Sure.
I watched Trent Horn, and you got to keep me on task. I'm a novelist, and
Hmm.
I just like to go down a road.
You like
Um,
your side
that's
quests.
what that's what I was first. I was a novelist before anything else, man. Eight
Yeah.
years old, I was writing novels. Um, and so I watched Trent Horn and Alexander O'Connor
Hmm.
have an interaction over the period of years, just various videos, and he talked to
Yeah.
Bishop Barron and kind of stuff. So I was very interested. I'm still very interested in those two people,
Yeah.
and I've had a lot of conversations about Trent Horn and about Alexander O'Connor with people who are more public facing than me.
Hmm.
Um, that I don't want to hurt their reputation by associating myself. But it seems to me like atheists do not encounter creationist Catholics in like mainstream apologetics arena. Are there any that believe in a young Earth creation and Catholicism?
I don't know. Everybody has unique beliefs. So
Okay.
is it
Well,
is
I
it
I would I would just put out there, and we won't
sure.
examine it, that the true religion,
Mm,
the absolute correct understanding of Catholicism requires, and I'm assuming Catholicism is the true religion.
hmm
Now, that's not to say what people think, not everyone understands it, but it requires a belief in young Earth creationism. Without that, you don't have Catholicism. And basically, if somebody holds an old Earth or holds evolution
mm,
in macroevolution, we'll say that, or in this kind of like the Big Bang or anything like that,
yeah,
they have not they have not fully played those two out, and eventually one of those is going to break. Either they lose their faith or they lose the false belief. So I don't think you're so that's why I say I don't think you guys I
yeah.
think you guys deserve access to somebody who has that full foundation, as proud as that
I
might
mean,
sound.
that's an interesting point of view. It might be interesting to do that, in a separate
Maybe we
conversation.
could follow up with that sometime, but let's just leave it as like a
It'll be a
little
tantalizing niblet there.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
And I'm not
that's
as confident in
yeah,
talking about that as I am about usury,
sure.
because it fascinates me. I have a hard time. I think part of the reason why somebody like Trent Horn, for instance, doesn't believe in creationism is because he's always fighting
Hmm.
with people outside the faith,
Yeah.
and so it keeps him from resolving that. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? I think that's why he didn't convert Alexander O'Connor, or at
Yeah.
least come to a conclusion with. All right,
If
but we can talk about usury. It's more important.
cool. So, several things I'd love to get in terms of background for this
Mm-hmm.
assertion or this conclusion that you've reached. Um,
Or do you
one
want
of
to tell me
them is,
what street epistemology is?
oh, sure, yeah. If we're not finished doing that, yeah. So the idea behind street epistemology is that you tell me something that you're convinced is true and that's meaningful to you, and we've figured out what that is. Um, and then I ask gentle questions, non-confrontationally. I don't take a position on the belief, and I'm not really interested in the belief itself. I'm interested in what are the reasons and justifications that lead you to that belief and support your confidence. And so we'll talk about like what your level of confidence is in that, and then what are the reasons that support that, and then we can just kind of dive down and figure out are the methods you're using to figure out that that's true reliable methods. In other words, do they reliably lead to this conclusion, or can somebody use those methods to come to other conclusions? And then based on
Do you
that, yeah. So that's
good?
that's basically what street epistemology is.
Yeah. Do you lean on empiricism for that? Is that what defines reliability?
I don't
Meaning
take
like
I don't take a position, right? What I do is it's an examination to find out, what methods are you using and why are they reliable? So it's really the content comes from you.
okay,
I'm really just asking questions.
sure, okay. Yes, I would love to do that because it's a
Cool.
very complex conclusion I've reached that took many steps.
Yeah. So the first thing that was interesting to me is you made a very, very broad statement, um,
Hmm.
which I took to be, and I may be misquoting you as being too broad. So maybe I should just ask you, like, what would be the simplest statement of this conclusion? What is like if I was going to paraphrase back what I thought I heard, is basically usury is the root of all human ills. But that seems very broad, so I don't want to, I'd love for you to kind of define, um, uh, first of all, what are all the problems? What is the range of problems that stem from usury? And then maybe you can describe what usury is, because I think I have an idea of what it is, but I'd love it if we'd work with your definition.
Right. Um, well, so I'll answer that backwards. Usury is kind of like pornography in that
Okay.
um, you know it when you see it type of thing. And that's
Hmm.
not to say that's not to say there isn't a very strict definition. It's just that it
Yeah.
sounds nuanced.
Okay.
And the reason it's nuanced is because of the complexities involved in
Okay.
people trying to avoid doing it, or at least trying to
Hmm.
avoid. It's such an unpopular thing
Okay.
that where like every man hates it, and every intellectual, like literally throughout all of history, people have always hated usury. That's why it's not talked about, because they understand it destroys everything thoroughly, as
Okay.
badly as you can destroy something. And
Okay.
so and it doesn't have that appeal that other sins might have that make them easier to digest, like, for
Okay.
instance, sodomy.
Yeah.
Sodomy, which is often compared in the moral theologians to usury,
Hmm.
can has this appeal, because if you think that the marital act is like, if you have any kind of misunderstanding of the way the human body is meant to be used,
Hmm.
then it's easy to see the conclusion that pleasure is good, and so therefore sodomy is acceptable, or it doesn't create any kind of, like you have to have these philosophical understandings before it's just easier to justify sodomy than it is to justify usury. Nobody thinks it's good. It's such a unnatural thing. Um,
Okay.
but it's basically profiting. It's using money twice and profiting off of it. And
Okay.
so the easiest way, the most practical definition, if you're like, well, am I committing usury, which is not the
Yeah.
most important question. Um, but the practical definition is, if you're profiting through interest off of a human necessity, so like housing, food, um, even
Hmm.
something that's just a situational necessity, so
Right.
that somebody is kind of like forced to take this loan. The morality requires you to give that loan without making profit out of it.
Okay.
If you try to profit off of it, you're now sterilizing the human race. um,
And
so
so if, like, let's say a businessman takes out a loan to start his business, but it's not a
it's not
hardship
usury.
for him, that's not usury. But
No,
if somebody is paying a mortgage for their primary residence, that's usury.
probably.
Okay.
Like almost definitely. I've never heard of a mortgage. I mean, like a zero interest loan or something like that wouldn't be usury.
Sure.
But the important thing to understand is that, well, okay, so let me tell you how it connects to human ills.
Yeah.
Is, as you said it, is the first thing I want to understand is, or the first thing I want to say is, hello, wife, how are you? Ah, okay.
Keep going. I'm just
Sun- Sunflower seeds.
on my notepad here so I
Yeah,
can
sure.
scribble some stuff down.
I got distracted.
Yeah.
So it's not that every human ill stems from usury.
Mhm.
There are there are a natural evils, and there are natural evils, like a
Mhm.
tornado,
Okay.
um, or an animal attacking somebody is a natural evil.
Uh-huh.
And then there are kind of like artificial evils where somebody has sinned against you. So
Yeah.
theft, for instance. But the reason why usury is the one problem that has to do with all the human ills is
Hmm.
because, and it is the thing it's like it is the, if we get rid of it, it will solve things so thoroughly that
Hmm.
any problem anybody has in their life right now will be fundamentally different and easier to, it just won't hurt them
Yeah.
in a way that's totally unacceptable if usury is gone, is because
Mhm.
usury, and you can already understand this from my definition, usury magnifies and profits off of all human ill. That's what it's designed to do. It's profit off of the fact that somebody needs a house. Anything, not just ills, but needs and
Yeah.
wants, all these things, all these
Yeah.
things. Because, like, okay, if a businessman takes out a loan to start his business, is that usury? Well, it might be. It might be. It's like,
Okay.
if I have to, now he's a victim of usury. That's the
Mhm.
thing. He's not the sinner.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
I
understand.
mean,
That's what I understand. Yeah.
well, it's important because Muslims oversimplify it.
Okay.
Uh, and that's also very interesting because the Muslims understand usury on a very practical level. In fact, the main reason why Mohammedanism prospered as a heresy was
Hmm.
because of usury, and that's why we still have it 1,500 years later. But that and internecine wars in Christendom. But um, if a businessman, so what kind of business is he doing? You know what I mean? Like, I just talked to a man 2 or 3 days ago, and he said, "Well, the only loan you should have is your house because a house is an asset." Okay, so there are people who take out loans to start a business related to the housing industry. Well, they're involved in usury and they're being victimized, and they're also victimizing others through it. Well,
Hmm.
if I cannot participate in normal buying and selling without purchasing a vehicle,
Hmm.
which is basically what it's basically the way that the world works, especially in America. I mean, in
Yeah.
Europe and many other parts of the world, you could survive without a vehicle. But America, thanks to Henry Ford, who I think regretted it, you need a vehicle. And then usury has made it so that it's just very difficult to get a reliable, workable vehicle
Hmm.
without taking a loan. So people often take a business loan, purchase a vehicle. Well, they're a victim of usury. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
and that's where it gets very nuanced. That's where it gets extremely nuanced.
Hmm.
And it helps, especially Catholics have this problem. If you don't pay attention to personal sin, it's like it's not important to figure out if somebody has sinned. It's not that important unless you're a confessor in a confessional.
Hmm.
It's not as lay people, as just normal man, especially dealing with people who don't have the same religion.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you should be thinking hard about whether somebody sinned. It just doesn't matter.
Hmm.
What matters is the suffering and the evils people are under and
Hmm.
the way it relates to virtue, especially the virtue of justice. So justice is giving to somebody what they deserve. That's what it is. It's giving to them what they're due. And so everybody is due life in such a way that you don't have to struggle every single day just to pay to continue to live. You know what I mean? Like, you can see this in the Old Testament, especially if you look into Jubilee. Jubilee had a lot to do with forgiving debt, but it had to do with other things too. It had to do with housing, it had to do with community, it had to do with tribe, it had to do with your family. And when the Jubilee happened every 70 years, you went back to your father's land. And so there was this transmission of inheritance. And that was how basically, now that law doesn't apply in the same way anymore because we're not one nation. The church is a yeast spread throughout the whole world. It's not genealogical anymore. But there was this security that God clearly cared about where a man is born and has an inheritance that will provide for him. You know what I mean? And that's like you see things like communism coming about to solve capitalism and picks up on this, that everybody deserves a security from society. Now,
Sure.
God can intervene with that. God can send tornadoes, but that's not the same thing as like every day you have to work as hard as you can away from your family just to justify that you are living.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Cool.
sorry for
Thank you.
preaching.
I'm I don't perceive it as preaching, right? You've got but um
I'm just loose at 9 p.m. I did this to
Yeah.
Mr. Watkins too. God forgive me.
Um, cool. So I feel like I understand your point of view on usury. I I hear you saying there's a lot of nuance to it, but fundamentally, I like I and this is I think like a soundbite that I think would maybe be useful and maybe a little bit clickbait, to sell this interview, and like when I title this episode, I might title it "Usury Destroys Everything," because you said it destroys everything, and I like the simplicity of that. And I know there's a lot more nuance that you're bringing to it, but in general, you're saying like much of the suffering of man in society is based on people profiting off other people's need. And it sounds
Well, it's
like,
gone on.
yeah.
Sorry, you already understand it.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
mean, if
God
that's
bless you.
if I'm not far off, then if I'm far off, then tell me. But I think that's kind of and what I'm intentionally trying to kind of make it simple enough so that we can then kind of put that on the shelf and then just talk about the reasons and not so much talk about that anymore. And I sort of feel like that's
Well,
the soundbite version of it. But
well,
tell me what I'm getting wrong, because when we get to the reasons, it may deal with the nuance. So,
right.
um, are
Well,
you
what
are
I
you
told
comfortable? Yeah,
good. What I told you is I'm a
yeah,
novelist. So like if I disagree with you, sometimes it's not because I think you're wrong. Sometimes because I
yeah,
think it's just a way of progressing the plot through conflict. Um,
sure. Yeah, and don't and so let's. What I want to do now is kind of move into the area where I talk more about. I'm going to ask about your level of confidence, because there are
can
philosophers.
I just add one thing to this explanation that I left out?
Sure.
The general explanation
Yeah.
is the one aspect that people have to understand that I think is intuitive, but
Hmm.
if you think about it for a long time, you can start to understand the implications, is
Yeah.
that usury works over time.
Yeah.
And so that's why, for instance, all the human ills and all the things are affected by usury. It's not because that happens automatically. It's because this problem started 400 years ago and has
Hmm.
not stopped. And so it's
Okay.
just progressed to a certain point. It might be
Yeah.
like 100 years ago that it wouldn't have been like this, even though usury was going on. But
Hmm.
now it's one. It's one in every area. So
Okay.
that's the people guilty are dead 300 years. Is my opinion.
So you say this happened. Sorry, I'm gonna jump back into that, because you say this
Sure.
started 400 years ago. Doesn't the Bible, which is 2,000 years old, have prohibitions against usury?
Yeah, 400 years ago. So that it has a lot to do with the breaking up of Christendom
Uh-huh.
under Protestant Reformation.
Okay.
Not because every Protestant is the cause of every problem. It's because when that happened, there was no longer a central authority
Hmm.
recognized that always trounced usury. So like in a kingdom, a
Yeah.
king doesn't matter how rich people are. A king can
Hmm.
just say, "No, all debts are forgiven. I don't care what he owes you." And that happened continually throughout history. Kings
Oh,
were
so
like
you're
the people
saying
who
you're saying what happened 400 years ago was the end of Jubilee.
Yeah, basically, well, it's because of English history. It's
Uh-huh.
because I mean, it's a very complex history, but England
Yeah.
broke away from the church, usury started happening, and
Hmm.
over time, the English kings were not. There was revolutions, there was the Glorious Revolution, stuff like that. A lot of
Yeah.
that, there's the Bank of England. A lot of
Okay.
that had to do with usury. The Pope, because he is not a genealogical inheritor of his kingdom, it's just
Yeah.
structured differently, was a very effective control on this
Okay.
problem.
So would you, and that's making me wonder, if you are equating, not in a definitional sense, but in a chronological sense, are you equating usury with capitalism?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Definitely, definitely.
Excellent.
I hate
Good.
capitalism. I've been trying to write a book about how bad capitalism is
Yeah.
and how bad conservatism is, and
Mm,
all of my American friends really hate me because they don't hate me, but they think that conservatism means people that have morals, and capitalism means people that like to trade goods for money. That's not what it means. And
yeah.
atheists know this. Atheists know this. This is what they know.
Yeah.
They know so much about this. Communism is way better than capitalism. That's my personal opinion. I think
Okay.
it's way better.
We could
It's
that
evil. It's not good.
that's yeah. I'm gonna write that one down too.
Yeah, I might be burned alive for saying that, but I'll defend it. I mean, it's just I've
Yeah.
made this point. It's I would much rather live under Islam
Hmm.
than under the American hegemony because
Hmm.
Islam gives you a
Yeah.
simple thing. It's like, okay, if you're not going to be Islamic, maybe they tax you, maybe they kill you. Well, it's a
Yeah.
win-win. It's martyrdom. I mean, St. Louis got this, but a lot of Catholic saints went to the Muslim countries for that reason. It's such a simple thing to approach.
Yeah.
But Americanism confuses you and sucks your soul out of a television screen. You
Yeah.
know? You don't even know you're going to hell until you die and you find God and he clears all these things up for you. It's terrible. The one saving thing about it is there's probably a lot of people who have what I think is called invincible ignorance
Hmm.
because of the confusion created by
Okay.
capitalism.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. Yeah,
Maybe
I'm
I'm
writing
just
down a
not.
list of things that I want to talk to you about in future conversations. If we get to a successful conclusion here, then I
Yeah.
think there's several things I think that would be interesting to talk about. But I do want to get back, if it's okay, to the idea of confidence, because as I was saying, some philosophers say you can either believe a thing or you don't believe a thing, and so there's certainly a sense of that. But my
Sure.
friend who owns this YouTube channel has a great T-shirt, which is a light switch and then a dimmer switch. And so rather than looking at belief as a light switch, we look at it as a dimmer switch because there's a level of
Yeah.
confidence to which you can hold a belief. And Pierce
Yeah.
may have this with you as well. So what is your confidence on a scale of 0 to 100 that, to use our placeholder phrase, usury destroys everything?
90,
Okay.
maybe 80. There's a couple of outliers that I have encountered that I'm still
Interesting.
processing. Pedophilia is one of them. It
Okay.
seems to be related to usury,
Huh.
but legitimate child predators uh, who I've unfortunately encountered since going on
Hmm.
the internet, um, they're the one group of people, and there's a spectrum to them, but where it's like I should not get along with them. They need to
Hmm.
be put into a particular safe place and
Hmm.
visited regularly by a highly trained priest. That's my opinion on that.
Okay.
Everyone else, I think, should work together against usury. There's a couple others like that, but I don't
Yeah.
hold them all in my mind at the same time. But that's the one that came to mind. But it's
So,
like this hasn't quite integrated.
yeah.
Good.
I I like that you didn't say 100%, but I'm surprised that you're as low as like 80 to 90%. So can you reflect on like why aren't you at 100% or 99%?
Well, I just there are parts of most of my understanding of this problem comes from my understanding of history, and
Hmm.
history is a complex subject,
Okay.
and so there are parts of history that are still dark to me. For
Okay.
instance, and American history is very, very significant, and English
Mhm.
history is very significant. And I feel like I have a better grasp on English history than on American history, specifically like Spain in America after about 1500. is kind of dark to me, because there's some interactions, because I interpret everything. History is God's book, but the problem is we can't read it very, very clearly.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of interactions, like God prospered the United States of America against Spain many times, and England against Spain. And I can understand some of those, and I don't understand other ones. And it's a tough piece of history to get reliable information on in English, because we're the enemy. And America has been the enemy of Spain for a long time. Since becoming Catholic, huge swaths of history started making sense that didn't before.
Interesting. Okay, so great. So you're 80 to 90% confidence. What is the main reason that you hold 80 to 90% confidence in this conclusion?
The reason for me to be confident, you mean?
Yeah. What's the reason?
Because you've already asked why I'm not higher. Okay.
Well, no. Why are you at 80 to 90%? Like what is the reason that you believe that usury is this evil thing that destroys mankind?
It's my understanding of history. I think I'm unique in understanding history because I'm not higher in confidence, partly because I understand that virtue is the solution. And so me arguing correctly and being hyper confident, just like we said about apologetics, is not as effective as me actually trying to be humble and actually trying to be sincere and just and all those kinds of things. I'm just not capable of knowing something specific with more than 80 to 90% confidence. That's high enough. I mean, if you read like business books and whatnot, you only need 80% of the information in order to make a good decision. You never get 100%, because we're men. We're not angels.
So if you, would it be fair to say
of history, I think my understanding of history is perfectly integrated with my interactions and experiences in the modern world. So my observations of the world, I can in my mind understand how history, all of history, has reached this point in its details. And I think hardly anyone else can do that. Everyone else they have their history, and it explains to them what's happening on a TV set, but it doesn't explain to them what's happening when they look at the construction of their home, or when they look at like the grass outside, or when they talk to their neighbor. I do all those things. I'm very ingrained in the natural world. I'm digging a hole. I dug a hole this morning. I'm digging a hole tomorrow. I've got to fix a plumbing issue, and I'm going to dig out the whole crawl space. And most people in this day and age are one or the other. They're either involved in the abstract world or they're involved in the natural world, and they're not both. And even the ones who integrate those two and are living that way, which is the correct way to knowledge, they just aren't. God hasn't intended them to understand history. That's not where he has given them grace, but he's given me a lot of grace in that area.
Okay. So two reasons. It sounds like one is your understanding of history, and one is your observations of the modern world.
Yeah.
Which holds the larger share of supporting your confidence? So if you're going to have those in a pie chart, right? What's the biggest slice?
I mean, it's like the history is like the key for the code of what I observe. I'd say the history, because the problem with the modern world is the simulations and the screens, like the fact that if I right now open a file, everyone knows I am not holding anything in my hands. You know what I mean? Except maybe a mouse. So like there's an illusion going on. There's a simulation going on. And that's fine, but it's so thorough and so complex and so built up that
Yeah.
I think I think that the modern world's just confusing. I think you're not going to understand it. It doesn't help you at all unless you have something outside
Yeah.
to even just differentiate between what's true and what's false. That's why
Okay.
people don't know. People are like, seriously, are we living in a simulation? They have
Hmm.
no idea. Well, of course they don't, because we are living in a simulation. It's hard to tell what's the simulation, what's not the simulation. Is this beer that I have in this barrel, or is Michelob on its brand? Is that beer? What is
Yeah.
beer? People don't know. What is liquid smoke? For
Sure.
instance. There's a good Catholic who talks about this in relation to meat. He's a butcher.
Okay.
I'm also a trained pork butcher, thanks to him.
Hmm.
It's like, what is meat? You know, people don't know what meat is.
Yeah.
I've eaten brain, I've eaten feet, I've eaten
Hmm.
heads. What is meat? I mean, you read old books and it's like meat is, John the Baptist's meat was honey. So does meat just mean what you eat? What does it
Hmm.
mean? You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
God
if
bless you
if
for
you
patience.
if you became convinced that your understanding of history was flawed,
Mhm.
would that reduce your confidence down like below 80% or down to 80%, or would it reduce the confidence that you have today?
Yeah, I would withdraw. This happens regularly. This happens regularly to me.
Okay.
So what I do when that happens is I withdraw from the public world as much as I
Mm.
can, so I can pray, study,
Hmm.
and figure out what I was wrong about. For instance, that happened
Okay.
to me when I encountered a child sex predator, and I wrote an article basically cataloging my thoughts, and
Yeah.
it was called Sex, Violence, Masculinity. So
Hmm.
you could read that article and you would have a pretty reasonable glimpse at my interior life whenever I do fall below 80%, which is
Okay.
regularly, probably daily,
Okay.
daily.
Hmm.
I don't think this is a battle I'm fighting, and I don't think that I just hold on to the conclusions I've reached, but I doubt them regularly, basically because of the onrush of difficulties and challenges and distractions during the day.
Yeah.
And it takes about 15 minutes of prayer a day to actually understand what I'm doing again.
Hmm. Okay.
I feel like you ever seen that movie Memento?
I
It's a
haven't. I haven't.
I
It's
I don't
supposed to
want to
be
promote
good,
it.
but yeah.
It's a little disturbing, but
Okay.
it's not like everyone should watch it. I got to be careful because I'm a Catholic. I don't want to like scandalize people by accident. But I feel like the guy in Memento. I feel like I'm just reading notes written to myself most of the
Mm.
time and
Okay.
following them,
Yeah.
you know. While I'm like pursued by this enemy,
Yeah.
usury, which is realistically how everyone lives.
Yeah.
But that's the answer to your question. How do
Yeah.
you
Thank
like
you.
it? That's
I love it.
sincere.
I love it. And so you see what I and just to be transparent about the method here
Hmm.
is we went from your belief to what are the things that support your belief. And now we've figured out that history and your understanding of history seems to be the main thing supporting this. So
Yeah.
let's ask. So I'm going to ask some questions now about that.
Good.
What I just did with seeing if that would reduce your confidence, that's something that in street epistemology we call the real reason check. A lot of the time you ask people, oh, if you didn't have this reason, would your confidence still be the same? And they say, oh yeah, what doesn't change my confidence? Aha, then that's not the real reason that you believe that. So I'm convinced now that you believe that your study of history is the real reason you believe it. Sorry. Street epistemologists don't often talk about the meta about what we're doing, but I know you're interested in this process. So, I like to be
Well,
very.
God bless you. I really appreciate that. I wish Mr. Watkins had done that more, but I still love it.
So let me so let me ask a little bit of a few questions about the process of the method of learning things through history. Could
Sure.
somebody study history and come away um, with an incorrect conclusion?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. So what is it about your study of history that you find reliable? Like, why is studying history a reliable method to support your confidence in this belief about usury?
There's a complete coherence to it.
Okay.
So if um this kind of feeds back into what I was saying about Alexander O'Connor and
Yeah.
Trent Horn, those good gentlemen, is a good Irish boy.
Hmm.
Just conquering Oxford the way we were meant to do.
Okay.
God gave the Irish to the English to teach them sense, and the English generally have beaten the sense out of them.
There you
Um, that's a fact. I know that
go.
from the bottom of my heart. But it's so there's a coherence. So that's the problem with, for instance, Trent Horn, is
Oh.
and Thomas Aquinas said that. He said that if you just are constantly abstracting everything,
Hmm.
your intellect will end up just proposing problems forever and never actually
Yeah.
do anything useful for anybody. The person, the intellect was designed by God. It's not quite the highest point of the
Hmm.
soul. The highest point of the soul is the nous, which is a Greek word translated English into heart, and it's not intellectual.
Okay.
Yeah, that's complex. I don't mean to go down that rabbit hole. But the point being, a man's intellect is limited. It can't grasp all of creation.
Yeah.
Um, and so um, history is such a broad topic that
Hmm.
you need grace from God in order to understand it. You need the virtues, and you basically need to know exactly when history begins,
Hmm.
exactly when it ends, and what unites all the pieces together into
Hmm.
one coherent story and narrative. And I just the people I've met that have that, they don't have. Some of them do, one or two I've met, but most of them, even if they have that understanding of history, which used to be the common treasure of Catholics, every Catholic knew this. They knew how history begins, they knew how it ended. Now, creationist Protestants seem to have a better understanding of that. But so then they don't have some of these interior pieces that you need to have, like Protestants or Christians or whatever. They tend not to understand what happened after the book of Acts ended and before Martin Luther was born. That whole 1500 years, which is so significant, they don't understand it. They don't
Yeah.
know it. They don't know what happened.
Okay.
um, and so, and that was what I was when I was not Catholic.
Hmm.
Um, Other things that can be missing is a lot of people understand 1800s. A lot of atheists understand that period of history and the 1600s, the 1700s, and how things went wrong, but they don't know what was right before. The Catholics who understand medieval history don't understand, oftentimes, don't understand what is wrong in medieval history and why God allowed Christendom to collapse or nearly collapse. That's a debate. Um, so that's why. So all those pieces need to be united.
Yeah. If
And to a lesser extent, before the incarnation of Christ is important, but it's not that important. Creation and after the incarnation of Christ is really necessary to have a
Right.
thorough understanding of the last 2,000 years.
Okay. So if I and I have a little prop here. It's a little alien guy. I always say this is Al. He's not from here. But if
They
Al,
say that, good.
yeah. So if Al told me, um, hey, I've been studying history and I feel like I have a unique grasp and view of history. I've really looked into this and
Mhm.
I really don't think that usury is the point. I think people that look at usury as the problem are kind of missing the point. And that's based on the coherence of all the history that I've looked at. And I've looked at, the 1800s, I've looked at the 1600s, I've looked at the what happened after Acts
Sure.
and what happened after that. If I'm talking with you and then I'm also talking with Al, and you're using the same method, right? You're using the study of history, and you're
Sure.
telling me very similar stories. How can I, as a neutral party, tell which of you is more likely correct, or if either of you are correct?
You'd have to, a lot of it would depend on your paradigm
Hmm.
because I just don't have a lot of time to talk
Sure.
and understand each other. And the language is broken so that the words mean different things than
Yeah.
they used to mean. And I can give you plenty of examples of that. But you could probably simplify it to two things. Um, so, and it's the same two things. So either delve into the details of history, and we can talk about it. Um, and and what I would endeavor and it, what I would endeavor to do is ascertain your moral beliefs about what do you think is right and what do you think is wrong. Basically, your understanding of the virtue of justice. What do you think people deserve, and what do you think they get, and what's the difference? And then I would try to prove to you that that difference comes from usury, at least in its great
Hmm.
extent. Um, so we could
Okay.
talk about that if you were more of an abstract intellectual, or if you're the common man. I just point to you to some of the effects in your life, and I'd say something like, "Why in the world do you go to work every stinking day, 40 hours a week, away from your family, and you come home and there's nothing at the end of the day? That
Hmm.
doesn't make sense. You should not suffer that. It's not legal. It's not even like under the Constitution. The reason why they didn't have an income tax is for that reason. You're in poverty, and yet we have all these luxuries. It doesn't make any sense.
Hmm.
Right now, the American tax code says that if that happens, if you have no money so you've bought your food, you've bought your house, everything that you need to pay for, even like you had entertainment, all these things. The
Yeah.
American tax code right now says you should not pay anything in taxes if you have nothing at the end of the year. There's nothing to be taxed there because your business expenses were greater than your business profit. And that's true because everybody with a social security number is a business in the American tax code. They just don't take advantage of these tax benefits. So
Hmm.
why is this so screwed up? Why? It shouldn't be that way. It's
Yeah.
because of usury.
So so it's interesting. So we were talking about history and why history was a good reason to believe. And now I think you're talking about the other pillar of that sounds like it's standing up your beliefs, which is observation of the modern world and
Yeah.
modern experiences,
So
right?
basically, I would use my understanding of history
Yeah.
without trying to teach it to somebody because it's so complex, unless
Yeah.
they really require that, which is usually
Okay.
they're proud or it's their paradigm or whatever.
Yeah.
They spend a lot of time dealing with history, but or dealing with abstract things like financial code or something like that.
Yeah.
But I would use my understanding of history as the key to then try to tell you to look at the things that you're overlooking,
Hmm.
and then is that really right? How do we fix that? Well, this is how. And you at that point you don't even really need to know that it's because of usury, but I'm going to say it's because of usury because I love Jesus Christ, and
Hmm.
part of what I want to do is make sure people know the truth, because one of the things usury does is it makes you hate your neighbor. It divides people into camps so that it can profit off of those people, because
Hmm.
literally loan sharks are so unpopular that if you knew who was doing usury, they're always destroyed. I mean,
Yeah.
they're usually lynched. So they need to be protected, basically.
Um,
Um,
if you don't
Good.
mind me redirecting back from
Sure. Sorry.
right. So we're talking about history and how study of history is a good support for this. And I guess one of the problems that you're calling out is that history is very complex. And lots of people
Yeah.
study history. Why do you suppose that most people who study history don't come to this same conclusion?
It's because of the way it's because of the way that it's given to them. So it's
Okay.
this the study of history
Mm.
is also a capitalized industry.
Hmm.
So the university system is, and history books, the
Hmm.
publishing. I am also a publisher. I'm a
Hmm.
publisher. I own Taurus Necrus Publishing, and I guarantee the publishing industry is also capitalized. And
Hmm.
so there's just a strong incentive for interpreting history in such a way
Hmm.
that it makes usury not apparent. And
Okay.
so now, but if I know it's so easy to see, and I write a lot about this in my novels and in nonfiction too, that um, if uh, if I can get access to what somebody knows about history, I can a lot of times show
Hmm.
them from there how you, because it's not like they make usury sound good, they just
Yeah.
hide it. And I happen
Okay.
to have read enough. And I also know the things that are just assumed to be good, like technological progress and industrialization and
Hmm.
all these things.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I know some of those philosophers, I've read them, and I could pick out some things.
Yeah.
And
Are the
if somebody
are
likes, good.
sorry, I just wondering if the sources that you're reading, like how do you eliminate bias and interpretation from the sources that you're drawing these conclusions from?
Prayer and
Like,
meditation.
okay, tell me more about that. Tell me, like, you're saying that prayer and meditation is a method of determining the correct reading of a historical book?
Yeah, so the virtue of faith is
Mhm.
the intellectual assent to everything the church teaches.
Okay.
So what that means is that if you have faith, you know God is good. You
Okay.
don't have to argue about that. Now you could argue about other things. Does God want, I keep saying tornado, does God want
Yeah.
earthquake because people were practicing sodomy? You could argue about that, but God is good.
Hmm.
Well, meditation is the practice of, um, it's the, what's the word? The discursive method. So you
Hmm.
take knowledge that you have and you play it together in order
Hmm.
to gain new knowledge. So, for instance, if I know God is good,
Hmm.
and I know God is all powerful, then I
Hmm.
can meditate and I can reach the conclusion that God that it is good for the United States of America to be the empire over the world. I can reach that conclusion because I know God is good and I know He is omnipotent. But the limitations of meditation are clear. It's like that does not tell me anything else about why is this the case. So then it really starts to come I knew this thing. I know America is the empire over the world. It's the most powerful empire in the world. I know that because of outside knowledge that doesn't come from faith. So I can attack that with what I know by faith. You know what I mean? And I
Okay.
can. So, anyways, does that
Yeah.
make sense? Maybe if you ask more questions, it'll help because I'm talking about something that Catholics
Yeah.
do.
So it sounds like, there's history, and you believe you have a unique perspective or a unique interpretation or understanding on history. But the reason
Well,
for that unique perspective
go ahead. There's
is,
plenty of people that agree with me.
yeah, but the reason for that perspective is uh, prayer and meditation and ultimately faith. Is that why you're convinced that your historical interpretation is correct?
Yeah, that's why I'm convinced. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, um,
Not a 1-2. I mean, it's a process.
yeah. So,
I I think that the logic is there for other people, um, in ways that don't require faith.
yeah,
But the way faith is always, the way the virtue of faith, which is a very specific thing, Martin Luther redefined it as like a belief in your salvation despite the way you feel, which is not the same thing.
hmm,
Um, it's very different.
okay,
But the way the virtue of faith has always been talked about is it's a shortcut to truths that you can learn over a long intellectual pursuit. You know what I mean? Like they even talk
yeah,
about that in relation to the Trinity and stuff like that. So
okay,
now there are things that can't be proven by the intellect, but they can be reached by the intellect.
hmm,
Does that make sense?
yeah,
So
but
I think it's I think people can understand usury without faith. It's just that faith helps a lot. It
yeah.
helps a lot.
So you remember Al, right? Al also believes he has a unique perspective on history. If I
Yeah.
talk to Al and would Al be also justified if he says that it's his faith that he gets through prayer and meditation that tells him that his interpretation of history is correct? Like, would he
No.
be justified in reaching that conclusion?
No, I wouldn't use it as a justification. No, you would
Okay.
not.
So why is your usage of faith and Al's uses of faith, why would yours be a sufficient justification and Al's wouldn't be?
Mine wouldn't be a sufficient justification.
Okay.
It is just the method I used.
Yeah. Why
That's all.
why is that a
There's so
reli
many.
why is that a
Good.
reliable method to justify your interpretation of history that's supporting this belief?
It's not. It's not a okay. It's not a reliable method to justify it to other people. It
Hmm.
is a reliable method to justify it to myself.
Okay.
Um, Reason being that I am a Roman Catholic.
Hmm.
So that presupposes that um, there is a God, that God wants to save my soul, that he
Hmm.
wants to, he's good, he wants to relieve suffering. So all these things presupposed by faith
Yeah.
is there. So for me to have faith is makes me a coherent person. The reason why it would not
Okay.
be it all comes together.
Yeah.
It's just of me. It is predictable. It is expected that if I am to be an integrous person, that I would believe what Roman Catholics believe. Otherwise, I should not be a Roman Catholic.
Hmm.
Whereas the reason why it's not a justifiable purpose to other people
Yeah.
is because not only are most people I interact with not Roman Catholic, so it wouldn't be it wouldn't be integrous. It wouldn't be there'd be an inconsistency in their person. So I wouldn't be able to interact with them sincerely and honestly. If I thought that the way to persuade them was to persuade them using faith, or that faith is what they're missing for this problem. This problem is before faith. I mean, it's pagan societies before Roman Catholic
Hmm.
literally solve this problem. You know, it's very unique historically to
Yeah.
have it be this insane. Um, and then also, just as a caveat to that same point, that those people aren't Roman Catholic. Also, there
Hmm.
is so much confusion in the church. Everyone knows it. It's you can ascertain it from popular opinion of any group that is aware that the Catholic Church exists.
Yeah.
That um, Catholics don't even know what they believe. They don't know what makes a Roman Catholic. So
Hmm.
even if I'm interacting with a Roman Catholic, I have every reason to believe that they will not take something on faith. because they probably don't even have the virtue of faith. You know,
Okay.
does that make sense?
It does, but
There's also a problem of language and the words and communication. Faith doesn't mean
yeah,
the same thing it used to mean.
sure. But it seems like if you're not resting your historical interpretation on faith, what is the thing that differentiates your interpretation from somebody else's interpretation that you believe is inaccurate?
Um, on a generic level, um, my
Yeah, on
personal,
a methodological level. So you're using study of history as a method to
yeah,
determine truth of your assertion or your conclusion.
mhm.
Somebody else is using a study of history as a method to justify a conflicting conclusion. How can you how can you compare those? Like, what is the method we can use to figure out which one of you has got the right answer, or do either of you have the right answer?
Right. Um, I mean, I hesitate to say this, but I think you're helping me figure out something, which is I continually wonder, and I've been putting this puzzle together for a little while and trying to figure out
Mm,
why this is the case. Why atheists understand economics so well and Catholics don't.
mm,
They're so retarded um, about economics. And I figured out some things about like the fact that Catholics have prospered in America since the
mhm,
1970s because they had a moral strength to them that kept them in complete homes where they had their parents interacting with them and helping them get a leg up on their life. That's why they hear me. It's like, oh, you won't go to college, you won't get a regular 9 to 5 job, you're just
mhm.
going to fail. And it's like, well, you talk to anybody outside the Catholic Church and they understand that that's not working anymore.
Yeah.
Um, that's just a basic example. So, what I was going to say is it's because of the, so it's those two things, right? So, my observations in life and
Hmm.
history. So,
Yeah.
I have lived a thorough life and experienced these things that plague people on an individual personal level
Hmm.
in such a way that it helps me interpret history because one of the
Okay.
problems with history, you read it and it's like you just read about like kings and aristocrats and or depending on what period of history, or you read about capitalists and industrialists, or you read about the working class,
Yeah.
and it takes a certain personal experience to be like, well, what in the world was the farmer going through at this period? What was
Hmm.
the what was the wheat farmer dealing with when Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And if you have lived life a little bit as a farmer, you could be
Hmm.
like, well, I know what my life's like as a farmer. This is probably where he was at. He probably wasn't affected that much. It probably only affected the city man. You know? And
Yeah.
that's true. And there's historical documentation to prove it. Like the lack of change and like now this is I hear this secondhand. I'm just giving it as an example, but
Hmm.
I don't know that much about farmers. But so I've heard there if you study Roman records at certain periods of instability, the transactions of farmers selling crops and stuff like that just
Hmm.
does not change much. It's just stable, even though like huge civil wars, all this kind of stuff, and then you figure out, oh, it only. So anyway, so that's an example of how you can interpret history and read between the lines based on personal experience,
Yeah.
because the first hand historical documents you would never go
Okay.
look for. You never.
Sure.
Anyways, so does that answer your
So,
question? And I think
yeah.
atheists understand economics because they have more experience of the suffering in the world than Catholics do. Than Catholics are insulated in it, particularly in America.
So, so taking that, so now you're describing like a method where you're using history and you're using your observations and interpretations of modern day to kind of form a consistent through line. So you're looking at history and saying, well, clearly this makes sense because of what happened in history. Am I
it
kind of
and
capturing
it's
that correctly?
very yeah, and it's very social. So like we haven't defined what I mean by observations. Well, most of my knowledge of
Yeah.
what the world is going through as far as
Hmm.
like the people in the world comes
Yeah.
from long, genuine, sincere conversations with people of all stripes where
Hmm.
I've learned the method of asking people questions and learning about them before
Yeah.
ever telling them my opinion, which is probably why I like street epistemology.
Yeah.
So that's because I hear Catholics, for instance, say um, things like, "Oh, here's a good example. There was a Catholic man. He was listening to Glenn Beck, and Glenn Beck was talking about how my generation is so lazy and worthless, and you shouldn't. You were trained to love safe spaces and
Hmm.
this kind of thing. And it's just total propaganda, like
Okay.
literally baby boomer propaganda, and it's like I remember when I became conservative and I started hearing people say things about like college students and liberals and the left. And I'd be
Hmm.
like, well, I've talked to liberals and the left, and they don't act like that.
Yeah.
Or if they do, there's a nuance to it. Like, literally, it's like, oh, you were trained to look for trauma and stuff like that. Like literally everyone is traumatized by insane mental illness because of broken families, divorce, things like that. And I know that because I've talked to people.
Hmm.
But okay, not to go off on that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. So there's this correlation between what you see kind of in history. And what I'm wondering is, kind of going back to somebody else who's looking at history and also observing the modern world, like
Yeah.
could somebody observe the modern world, pick some other aspect of it, tie that back to history, and then wind up coming up with again I'm going to make something up. I'm not going to make an argument here,
Yeah, give
but
me an example.
like
That'll help
like
me.
let's say somebody says, people in the West under capitalism are so much better off and lives so much
Oh,
a higher
sure.
standard of living. Like, for example, let's say they say that, and then they look back through history and they say, well, it's because we came out of feudalism and we did this and we did that. And I'm not a historian, but could
That's a
somebody use
great example. I mean, there's
the
so
same
many
method,
people that
right?
think that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if other people can look at modern day, look at capitalism, and go back and look at history and come up with a conflicting a conclusion, right? Then is that like how reliable is that as a method of figuring out, or maybe to do the thing with Al again, right? If Al is saying this and you're saying this, how can I kind of take a step back and listen to you both? What's the unique thing that one of you brings to the table that is verifiably can conclude that your version is correct?
Charity. It's charity.
Okay.
So it's love, caritas, the virtue of charity, which makes a lot of sense because
Okay. Is
that
it,
virtue is above faith.
huh, okay.
I mean, everyone should know that. Charity is another word that's been redefined and does not mean what it used to mean.
Yeah, there's
It's a
faith, love, and
profound
charity, right?
theological
And the
thing.
faith, love, and charity, the greatest of these is love, right? Isn't that the
Faith, hope, and charity.
hope and charity? So what's the full? Well, sorry. Anyway, I wasn't meaning to go to the Bible, but
The greatest of these is love. Yeah, the Latin is caritas.
okay.
And by the
Uh,
way, the reason why it's not clear, from what
yeah.
I can understand, is because of King James in
Okay.
England. He had a broken English uh, nation empire at that point
Mhm.
over the Irish and the Scotch and all that kind of thing. And people were all these different religious sects that before it was just Catholic, but now they're all these different things. And they had killed each other for a long time in the civil wars. And
Mhm.
so one of the things King James seemed to have done is to make the truths of faith less discernible so that people could not understand them as easily by
Hmm.
reading their Bible and stuff like that,
Okay.
so that they wouldn't argue about them as much and kill each other over them. That was his
Interesting.
plan.
So,
Um,
so charity. So
Go
tell
ahead.
tell me, can you define for me, in a kind of 25 words or less, what is charity? Because I will assume from what you just said that I don't, my definition of charity is not going to cut it.
Well, it's a profound thing. So it's
Hmm.
charity is obviously more, it's deeper, it's simpler, and it's simpler in the technical sense, meaning it does not
Okay.
have parts. Which is simplicity
Okay.
is another thing that's been changed. But it's because simplicity is also a virtue,
Yeah.
um, which is why we know duplicity is a sin. But
Mm.
basically, it has no parts. So charity is more profound than the language used to describe it.
Okay.
But I will say that a decent understanding of charity is seeking for somebody else, seeking the highest good for the thing that you cherish, the thing that you have charity towards. So love of God
Okay.
and love of neighbor, you know, there's some other
So,
profound things like Thomas Aquinas equates it to the Holy Ghost. He
yeah.
says Holy Ghost is the love between the Father and the Son, and it's also love is a principle of movement that it's the principle of all movement. He says Holy Ghost is the principle of all movement, and when the Bible says God is love, it's talking about the Holy Ghost is charity. Of course, the Trinity is united, so they're all charity. But point being that it's the movement towards the thing loved. So all movement, every motion comes from love, and so
Mhm.
it's the principle of creation. Anyway, so get to these things. That's meditation, but basically, the difference between me and the person who says, "Oh, we live such a nice life now," is because of technology and all these things that, in medieval Europe, you had to fight to get bread and that kind of thing. Well, it's not accurate, one thing, but it's also, and so if you understand history, you'll know that's not true, but you'd have to discern through the biases and everything. But also, it's like if you just talk to people, if you talk to somebody today and you
Yeah.
talk to the same person 10 years ago, their life, you don't have to talk to many people before you realize that life is really sad and broken and it's getting worse all the time. And so it's like, well, and then it's not much meditation then to reach the conclusion that these things that are called convenient really make life worse. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Everybody. Like, everybody. Even the people who say, well, life's better with all this convenience, it's because they're imagining this hypothetical world where there's no food, there's no water, and you have to fight every day, and you can't, like, and that's pure fantasy. That's not actually
Okay.
history.
So I'm interested in you saying like everybody knows because it seems like this is playing into so it sounds like the thing that everybody knows is so we started with charity. So I said why, if Al has this belief, which is that
Right. So,
we've come to this really great place and it's because of usury, and you're saying usury is the thing that's destroying mankind. Again, a bad paraphrase, but usury
oh,
bad,
it
usually
is. Yeah, yeah, it's sterilizing
right.
mankind. Definitely.
Yeah,
That's what it does,
yeah, and
technically.
there's these differing interpretations. Now, your differentiator that you offered is charity.
Yeah.
Can
So the point being
Al
that,
can Al also say that he has the highest and best wishes of mankind? He has charity towards
no,
mankind.
no,
That's
because
why he's taking this.
no, because
Okay.
no, because charity needs a specific object. So if you sincerely love somebody, you're
Hmm.
gonna actually listen to them.
Okay.
And if you spend any time listening to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
You can come in with this belief that, oh, these conveniences make life better. If you
Mm-hmm.
listen to them and you find out that they're sad, and you listen to why they're sad or they're
Mm-hmm.
angry, and you actually discern why they're angry, or all these disordered passions,
Yeah.
anything that's wrong that they complain about, the the best you can come up with related to this thesis of technological convenience, all these kinds of things, is to try to teach them to be grateful for these conveniences that they have.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best you can do.
Yeah.
Nobody, I swear, I've never encountered anybody. I just think through empirical experience, you'll never encounter anybody whose deep needs, desires, dissatisfactions are at all even
Mm-hmm.
alleviated by technological convenience. It's
Okay.
worse than a band-aid, or any of these things you want to say, refrigeration, any of
Yeah.
these things.
Do you
And it
think that?
helps that I've experienced these things deeply: food, water, shelter. The Bible lists 10 things that are necessary for life in Ecclesiasticus, and it's food, fire, iron, salt, oil, bread, the cluster of the grape, wine really, but fruit. Um, there's a few others: clothing.
Mhm.
I start to forget them. Milk,
Yeah.
honey.
Okay.
And I
So
have deep experience with those things, and most people don't.
have you talked to people who don't have money or benefit from, that have had usury, right? Like how are you able to contrast people that you talk with in the modern world with people who may not have that?
Well, say it again. I'm sorry.
I'm wondering if you didn't have this experience of people in the modern world and the people that you've talked to and your belief that they're unhappy, right? I'm wondering
Mhm.
if you talked with someone who didn't have the modern conveniences, who
Right. Okay.
who didn't have maybe didn't have a home because they didn't have a home loan
Right.
and it, right? How do you imagine they would speak to you? I mean, it's a little bit hypothetical because I see you're drawing part of your method is charity towards people, and you're listening
Hmm.
to the people, and what you're taking away from that is suffering,
Yeah.
and you're imputing usury as the cause of that suffering.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you have to contrast that with to like why is that
You
sample?
mean somebody who's not suffering from usury?
Yeah, why is that sample a good reason to believe that a life without usury is would result in not that suffering? Does that
Because
make sense?
the only so like I think that your example is bad, and I'll explain why, and then I'll give
Okay,
you a better example.
cool.
So, because I have done this now.
Hmm.
Um, so like if I talk to somebody who's got a loan, got all the inconvenient or got all these conveniences,
Yeah.
and um, and they're unhappy, you listen to them, and I can give you a real example, but this is just an example of many thousands and thousands of people I've talked to. Well, their complaint is about their son
Hmm.
who they didn't get to spend time with while they were working a job, and then now he's at college, and he doesn't feel like college is going to give him a fulfilling life. So this
Hmm.
father paid for it. 3.5 years into the college, about to finish it, nice expensive college, walks away, wants to start a business because he sees where this college is leading him. And so then
Hmm.
the father's got to persuade him to go back and get his money's worth to enter into a career. Okay. Hopefully, without much explanation, you can see all the things that usury has done to that father and son, because it's clear to me, but maybe we have to dig into that. So that's an example of somebody who has all the modern conveniences and is very successful under the usury system, relatively speaking. And then I'll think of another man. The one that pops in my mind, I don't know as well, but his complaint was, I'm talking to him, is like, oh, my family was living in this warehouse because we couldn't find the right kind of home. We don't have a home that we just inherited, so we're renting this place. And then um, I have to move from this warehouse because now, I don't know, that's just how he described it. It was probably just like a strange layout or something like that.
Hmm.
It was probably a regular rental. I don't know. I haven't seen it. It's like I got to move away from this place, and it didn't have the warmth of a home that's been built up over 3, 4, 5 generations.
Yeah.
But so that's part of it. But okay, so I moved from it. So I'm working my job all day, trying to just pay these bills, and then I have to go home and move my stuff all day long, and I have no time, and I'm exhausted.
Hmm.
Well, I could see how usury is affected. So there's somebody successful under usury, and so there's somebody unsuccessful under usury. Now
Yeah.
let's take a better example.
Hmm.
So they're both affected. They're both affected by usury because it's an overarching system.
Hmm.
The person who is happy is free from the system. So now I'm thinking of another person, a specific person. I'm an early adopter. These are all people I've literally like interviewed. I'm
Hmm.
not one of them's recorded. Um, I'm an early adopter of Bitcoin, and I have money, so I was able to leave my job, and then I went to go live in a community where all the people of my religious sect live, and we all have our house. We own the house, and I have no debt, and I have this community, and I'm just it's great. I can hitchhike, I can do hiking. Pardon me. I can trade exotic animals. I can live life the way it's meant to be lived. I run a business when I want to. You know, I'm just free because Bitcoin has set me free from this system, you know. So he's
Yeah.
happy. Why? These pressures of usury, the usury profits off of, he has temporarily escaped
Okay. Do
in a
you think,
limited manner.
yeah, do you think that there are some people who are suffering who, if they had the benefit of being able to borrow money, could alleviate their
Oh
suffering?
yeah, yeah. But that's not what usury is.
Okay.
So even the people who benefit by
Yeah.
borrowing money. So this is the
Hmm.
thing. This is what I keep telling people. It's like, dude, like I understand you're about to buy a home and you're closing on it this week. And so now that I'm telling you usury is evil, you're like really defensive. You have to, you don't know what usury means. If usury didn't exist, you would be buying the same home for a tenth the price.
Hmm.
Yes, getting the loan is relieving your need. That's why loans are okay. It would
Hmm.
be better if you got a gift. But God specifically explains this in the Bible. It's like repeatedly.
Hmm.
If if the poor need money and you can give it to them, give it to them. If you can't, but you can spare the money, then it's okay to loan it to them.
Hmm.
Don't don't profit off of that.
Hmm.
Don't do it. That's literally because the house shouldn't cost $350,000. It should cost $35,000.
Hmm.
Well, you go to the bank, you give them you probably give them a 20% down payment, but give them a 10% down payment. That's literally the amount of money that they have. So they then give you your own money back, totally inflated, and in
Yeah.
return, you're enslaved to them for 40 years.
Hmm.
That's what usury is. It's
Yeah.
it's it it's slavery. That's what the Bible
Hmm.
says,
Okay.
and it's a very nefarious way of taking a man's labor
Hmm.
and making it sterile. So a man goes to work every day and builds nothing for
Hmm.
himself. And even at this point, it's been going on so long that he builds nothing for anybody else. He's
Hmm.
generally paid just to sit on the clock and accomplish
Hmm.
nothing so that the system keeps running. That's the military industrial complex. We build bombs, blow them up. It doesn't accomplish anything. A man's labor is meant to build things, but most men can't build anything for themselves. And if they do it out of their job. And then somebody goes to them and says, "You're lazy and you're not working a job," when he's literally built a fence with his bare hands. And now he has the fence. That's not work. That's not a job. Why? Go to a job, clock in, and you're totally stupid thing. You're totally idle. You're on your phone messing around, but you're being paid. You're working a job. You're smart. You're productive. You're not lazy. That doesn't make sense. That's
Yeah.
not what these words mean.
It seems like maybe going back to the beginning, and I'm very conscious of
Yeah.
time, we're coming up on 2 hours. Uh,
Oh boy.
so we should wrap up pretty soon. But what I'd love to wrap up with
Yeah.
is
We could
I
talk again.
I think, yeah, I'd love to talk again.
If you could stand me, you're a good friend. I
No, I'd
really
love to I'd
appreciate
love to
you.
talk on some of these other topics because I think you've got some really interesting ideas here, and I think it would be good
God
to
bless you.
into these.
I'm not a likable
But
person. Thank you so much for 2 hours of your
I
life.
hate I
I've got
hate
to
you, but
apologize to my wife. No,
um,
it's
no,
totally
no. Here's
reasonable.
here's what I kind of want to wrap up with, and let's see if we can agree on this. And again, I'm not taking a position on this. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, but it
Yeah,
sounds like in the beginning of this conversation, there was a point you made, which is that usury is profiting off of, and it's almost seeming tautological now that when usury is harmful, it is harmful, or when profiting
okay.
off of when getting interest off a loan is harmful, it's harmful. So the cases in which it's
That's what
harmful
makes it a sin.
are usury, and that's what makes it a sin. So it's almost becomes tautological at that point, and maybe the approach we should have
Yeah.
taken was to say, uh, why is it not okay to profit off somebody's need or to profit off somebody's suffering? And maybe if we had taken it that way, it would have led in
Yeah.
a direction. So maybe we could
You
do
could help
that.
me with that.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the other thing about it though, is like there's other aspects. It's like, yes, it's a sin. That's what people don't understand. It's not
Yeah.
a good thing ever. Sin is never good, and by definition.
Yeah.
And it's also whereas evil, like a natural evil, is sometimes good. You know, destruction is sometimes good. The
Yeah.
flood was a good thing,
Well,
for instance. But
yeah.
also, wait, it's 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 reached a certain point historically. It's very extensive because it's consumed so much. But it's
Mhm.
also like it's like nakedness. You
Mhm.
know, lust is a sin,
Mhm.
but to look on a naked body is not a sin,
Yeah.
right? But you shouldn't do it
Mhm.
because you're so likely to do the sin.
Mhm.
So that's the thing. Usury is the sin. You shouldn't give loans. You should really hesitate to ever give a loan because it is so easy to sin doing it.
Mhm.
So easy. You know what I mean? That's the point. That's the point. So yeah, yes, people
Cool.
can benefit from a loan. We shouldn't do it. Okay, go ahead. God bless you.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you and ask if you had any questions for me.
Just how do you manage to deal with somebody like me?
I
You're
mean,
highly trained. This is why I like Mr. Watkins.
I talk to all kinds of people with all kinds of conclusions. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. And my job is to remove myself and my opinions from the conversation,
What
except
do you think of
insofar as it addresses like your belief formation and what are good reasons to believe things and what are not good reasons. And you notice that I got into things like, like you talked a lot about history and interpretation of history. And it's like, it seems like that's something where people can do that method and come away with opposite conclusions. And so then the
sure?
question becomes, how reliable is study of history as a way of determining truth? And is there a way to make it more reliable? Your answer was prayer and meditation. Can't somebody else say prayer and meditation and also come away with an incorrect truth? So now that you can say, well, they're praying wrong or they have the wrong faith, right? So we can unpeel these things and say, well, why is this a reliable method to figure out what's true? And and at the end of the day, like some of these become unanswerable questions.
Well, yes. I guess we don't have time. I think so. The thing about meditation is you're working with incontrovertible truths. So
Mm,
if you are doing this practice long enough, eventually all of your falsehoods, and also you have to like live a normal life and things like that. Like
mhm.
if you're doing a lot of things where opposed, you're acting in such a way opposed to the truth that you believe,
Yeah.
so you could sin, but it's like, and that does make it harder. But if you sincerely believe that that sin is not a sin, then basically meditation will eliminate all of your falsehoods over
Mhm.
time.
So
Because
that's another thing that we could have a productive conversation on, right? Is
yeah, sorry.
meditation as a reliable method of determining truth. Like I've written that one down
Yeah.
as another one. So anyway,
So what do you think?
how
I
was
have
this
a question for
process?
you.
Yeah.
What do you think about what I am telling you about usury?
I think there's a lot of truth to it. I think it's very complicated. Um,
Right.
without borrowing money, without the idea of taking out a loan that may last forever, but allows you to get an asset which is appreciating in value at a faster rate than the interest you're paying,
Yeah.
right? I have greatly benefited. My wealth is largely based off of profiting off the stock market, off of real estate, and so forth. So even though
Right.
I have suffered at the hands of usury, and in theory, if I didn't have that happening to me. So anyway, there's a lot of
You'd be bet.
complex
Yeah.
thoughts about it.
Well, that's the thing is
I think
this
it's yeah.
the
I
solutions to it. Well, so you're a good man for not being defensive, like
mm,
not, because that's the thing. Like this was set up. This is the system you're in. I was trying to explain this to a guy selling RVs. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like what people have been, it's like the solutions to it. So we know it's a problem. The solutions to it are very complex and
yeah,
very personal. So
yeah.
yeah, we got to work together though, man. You're a good friend. You let me know if there's anything I could do for you. I would love to help you with what you're trying to do.
Well, have I sent you, has anyone sent you a link to my podcast yet?
No. Wait,
It
I
would,
think you might have.
I just sent you a link to a video that I did called a talk that I do called The Four Disciplines, which is strategies for simplifying difficult conversations. But
Okay.
also I do a podcast. It's an audio only podcast on YouTube. That's what, I would use this recording for.
Sure.
And it's all conversations like this. So
Good.
yeah, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe and share with your friends.
I will do that. Can I ask you, because I want to
Yeah.
actually listen to you. My big problem is I don't have many opportunities to listen to things where my
Yeah.
children aren't also listening.
Ah,
So
yes.
like what of yours can I listen to that's safe, where there's not going to be vulgarity,
Mm.
just like what you would say is safe?
I don't
Because like I would
differentiate.
listen to this talk with my
Yeah.
children, it wouldn't be a problem.
I don't differentiate talks by, whether or not they contain vulgarity. I don't care. People can use whatever language they want, and people do, and I
Well,
swear
it
not to
sounds like your
swear.
four disciplines, like where you're teaching,
Yeah,
that sounds like that would be
that's totally
clean.
innocuous. Yeah, that would be
Cool.
completely clean. Yeah.
Good.
And if you watch all the way to the end, you'll get to meet some of our chickens and other things.
Nice.
So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's
God
animals
bless you.
involved in that one. Yeah.
Tell me exactly what to do because I'm going to go to my wife now and explain to her why I was gone for 2 hours. And so you're going to
That
have
is
to write
between
me.
you and your God, sir.
So you're going to have to write very specific instructions. Subscribe to this, click this button, listen to this thing when a,
Oh, I'm just going
you
to
know,
say it's a playlist on YouTube. It's very easy. And it's on a
nice.
larger channel called Sound Epistemology, where there's lots and lots of videos of conversations
Okay.
like this. Only a few of those videos include me. They're mostly run by David, who runs the channel. Whew. And I have to sneeze. So
God bless you.
so yeah, there's all kinds of great conversations there to watch and to listen to. So
Thank you.
anyway, it has been around 2 hours now, not around, but a round, complete 2 hours.
Yeah.
I will probably not trim this down much. I'll probably trim some of the preamble, But usually what we do, and you probably learned this from Pierce, there's kind of an ethos in the community that we don't edit conversations because we don't want to make people say things that they didn't say. So
Okay.
it's usually warts and all. So this would be a long one
Nice.
for sure.
I usually cut out technical difficulties, and
Mhm.
there have been things where if I'm with my friends, I'll edit down to make it more appealing. And then
Yeah.
Substack, when I post it on Substack, it gives me clips, and I
Mhm.
release those
Okay.
and point back at the full interviews. And Substack
Yeah.
does whatever Substack's going to do. So,
Cool. Well, if you're interested, I have an enormous backlog. I have done over 350 of these
wow.
conversations. We release one conversation every week, so I probably have 6 years worth of content. So this may not come out for a while. I am very
Okay.
happy to share this with you. If you have some venue where you want to release all or part of this, you're welcome to. This is going to be just the audio only. I'm happy
Cool.
to let you have
Okay.
the video recording if you like, but I usually don't use it except
Yeah.
as a reference. So
Yeah. Send it to me in Google Drive.
yeah, I will do that.
God bless you. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah. Thanks, Nathaniel. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've written down some other
let
things
me
that we
know
can
if there's
do another time. So
Let
yeah.
me know if there's anything you think I should do given my goals.
I mean, I
Like
think
talk
just
to
just
this person, stop talking, that kind of
I
thing.
mean, I if you can trim this, put this in 18 minutes, I think you've got maybe a great topic for a TED Talk.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, look at
Okay.
TEDx, which is a kind of a local version of TED Talk, and I would say, keep it like non-religious focus. So you're just kind of laying out the facts and talking about the suffering and all that. I mean, I think you could probably get something out there that would make an impact. That's
That's
one
really
possibility.
interesting. I
Look,
I
yeah,
have
look for other
insecurity
opportunities.
that
Yeah.
right. I have insecurity that I know I'm taking more time, but
Hmm.
I have a lot of insecurity. You've helped me realize like empirically, I'm always afraid someone's going to show up and start making arguments like from a law book or from a mathematics book or something like
Hmm.
that, where it's like my understanding of this is very very dynamic, rhetorical, social, you know, and so
Yeah.
like I know I'm right. Like I I can't necessarily like write a textbook about usury. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. This is a question I should have asked earlier, but I'll ask now, and maybe this will extend the time that we talk. But if you were mistaken about this belief, do you have a way to find out?
Yeah, I have counselors, so like there are people I regularly talk to and
Hmm.
ask them, what do you think about this? I have
Yeah.
priests, but I have one of them who's one of the holiest men I know. He's an academic in a major college and he
Hmm.
teaches history. So he's a pretty good one as far as
Why
like really checking me on all these things.
why are your counselors a good test to find out whether you're mistaken? Could these
Well,
counselors
I've just
be mistaken? Right? Could they give you the wrong answer?
it's a matter of virtue. Virtue is very easy to discern in other people. And
Hmm.
then, no, that's not to say a virtuous person can't be mistaken,
Yeah.
but a variety of virtuous and wise people who you've known for a long enough time that you
Hmm.
understand them thoroughly, those are the best people to tell you if you're right or wrong. You know, like I've seen these people how they, I've seen like, okay, if I'm not doing well, do they think I am bad just because I'm not doing well? You know, like I've gone through all that with these people.
Is
They give me advice, I don't follow the advice. Do they stop giving me good advice up to that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I
they're
mean,
just tested.
we've seen a lot of division socially, and a lot of what happens with the division is people form into echo chambers. So they have they're wise counselors that they talk to, and they hear the things that support their beliefs, and people on the other side
Sure.
have their wise counselors, and they so why is having that coterie of wise counselors a good method to check yourself?
Well, they don't agree with each other. and
Okay.
and I've uh, said straight out, like I've gone through many different philosophy and theological and all these different evolutions, and so the the group I've got is not an echo chamber. They're very opposed to each other, you know. So that helps, I would say.
Okay.
No, I mean you don't want like just meaningless conflict. They actually have philosophical differences and different
Yeah.
expertise and things like that. True diversity of thought. And usually, if I go to them for advice, I have to figure out, well, they're all disagreeing. What's the common ground? It's a, it's a very dynamic thing. It's very
Okay.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Difficult. If that makes sense. I would not describe it as an echo
Sure.
chamber.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Nathaniel. This is great for you to jump into a conversation with someone like me who, it takes a lot of vulnerability to have these conversations and to remain intellectually honest. And I feel like you have done so, which is fantastic. A lot of the
Without beer.
without beer, even without beer. Yeah. So thank you for having the chat. And yeah, I would love to talk again.
God bless you. Let me know as soon
Cool.
as we can.
Sounds good. All right. Take care.
That trust and integrity are important, which is why I'd prefer to talk to you individually, and I'm happy to do that if you have the time to do that. But nobody has time and nobody has money because of usury, which is why I'm fighting usury with all my heart, with everybody I can find. And if you want to support me with your time, if you have any extra, please contact me individually. If you have to send me money to support me, that's fine. We'll find the least usurious way as possible, and you'll see a link. There are three ways that we can do this, or there are three ways that I'm working on right now. There's one bottom-up approach. I'm talking quickly for the people who don't have time. And that involves creating insular economies, which is what you will find out when you contact me individually with your extra time. That's the most important. I'm doing that locally and I'm doing that electronically, which is where you come in. The other two are top-down. So that you can find a user, you can cause him to repent, you can tell him about Jesus Christ, and then he should fix everything. And so we won't suffer as much. Or you can pass Jubilee laws, which you don't need to find the user or do that. It makes usury illegal. It benefits everybody who is struggling, and it will punish users or anybody who commits usury. So, which is not the people you think. Nobody knows who they are. So don't worry about you being affected by that. But I'm doing the first one. I'm researching the other two, and I'm glad to hear your thoughts.